Good evening, everyone. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Bob Siren, the President and CEO of Peconic Landing. And I want to thank you for joining us for this very important discussion. And Peconic Landing is pleased to be a part of this conversation. Eastern Long Island Hospital is Suffolk County's first charitable hospital. It has been serving in North Fork for more than 100 years. It knows the community and works to do right by the community. Stony Brook University Hospital is Suffolk County's only academic tertiary medical center. Together, they represent the future of healthcare on the North Fork. Safeguarding access to reliable healthcare is vital for the North Fork, and this partnership is going to do just that, as you'll come to find out tonight. I'd like to introduce our speakers. We have Thomas E. Murray, Jr., Board Chair, Eastern Long Island Hospital, who will discuss the Board of Trustees' decision-making process. We have Paul Connor, President and CEO of Eastern Long Island Hospital, and also the Vice Chair of Peconic Landing's sponsor board, who will discuss the partnership planning effort. And we have Dr. Reuven Pasternak, CEO of Stony Brook University Hospital, who will discuss the shared mission of the two organizations. I want to thank each of them for joining us here this evening. And Mr. Murray, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bob. First of all, thank you all for coming tonight. We had a just as always with me. Can you put? You got a lot of Orient people here tonight. You better be careful. And a Stony Brook rep too. This is a very nice, intimate group. We had a very, very nice session this afternoon at 4 o'clock with the residents of Peconic Landing. This room was completely full. And you could tell just by the questions and their comments how interested they were and how concerned they were with the decision that we made. And every person was 100% in favor of the Stony Brook decision. And as I started this afternoon, I looked at the board, and there are 5 bullets. And what I'll do is I'm going to start with the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees' due diligence. The board's decision was not a 2-month decision or a 3-month decision. We worked on this for 2 years. And the last 3 or 4 months, especially the last 3, were the very, very, very intense discussions and meetings that we had. I made it a point this afternoon to say, and I'll say it again, that Eastern Long Island Hospital was not looking for a merger 2.5 years ago. That was not our plan. We didn't say, we want to merge with someone. We have a ferociously independent board, and this hospital has been around for 110 years, and we had no intention of relinquishing responsibilities or leadership or governance in any fashion. But just so you get just a tad of a picture, we wound up with the Berger Commission 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever it was. And it put us, Southampton Hospital and Peconic Bay, together as an alliance. That alliance for us turned out to be very good because the 3 of us could do our negotiation on our managed care contracts. So it was very good for us. And what happened was that Southampton decided that they were going to move forward on their own at that time, which was a couple of years ago, and try to work out an arrangement with Stony Brook. And once that happened, the whole atmosphere and the climate of the alliance changed. And Peconic Bay then started their negotiations, and they decided, as you know, to go with North Shore LIJ. 2 years ago, at least 2 years ago, I formed a special committee I called it the GO6. It was 6 people, one of whom is right here now, Ms. Donlin. And we worked for 2 years with 1,000 meetings trying to bring together all of the pertinent information that we would need to make a decision. We had an overture from North Shore ELIH. We had that in hand for quite a while. And we then were able to get, I hate to say it to you, Reuven, but we were able to get Stony Brook's attention. And the reason for that is that they were dealing over the last couple of years with trying to finalize the Southampton deal. And once that was finalized and they got approvals, then they were able to turn their attention to us. So once we were able to do that, we were able to move forward. And we wound up having a couple of meetings. We had the last board meeting, which was all in executive type session, was on July 9th. And on July 9th, we had the vote, and the board voted unanimously to go with Stony Brook. And from that moment on, we have been working with Stony Brook, putting programs together, whether it be behavioral health or psych or physician recruitment, etc. So all of these things are ongoing. I said it at the 4 o'clock meeting, and it bears repeating, that if it were not for this man over here, I know I upset him all the time when I say this, but if it wasn't for Reuven Pasternak and his tenaciousness as far as staying with it and making things happen from his side with consultants and all the rest, I don't know where we would be. We were in a very, very limited time. We, the board, decided that we were going to make a decision on June 30th. That was it. And I remember telling Reuven at that time that, look, come June 30th, that's it. There's a period at the end of that sentence. It's not that you're going to come back to us on July 1st and tell us this or that. June 30th, we had to have everything in place for the board to make a decision. And fortunately, at that particular point, the proposal that Stony Brook gave to us, for a varied number of reasons, put us in the direction of voting to go with Stony Brook. I mentioned last at the meeting this afternoon, because you'll see that when we get into the questions and answers, most of the questions are going to go to Stony Brook and the services they offer and the types of services, etc. But I wanted everyone to know that because of the relationship that we had with Stony Brook and the nature of the arrangement moving forward, that none of our people will lose their jobs. We have 450 people work for Eastern Long Island Hospital. And it was very, very important to the board that we could assure that these people would have continued employment. The hospital will stay pretty much the way it is now, of course, moving forward with all the different things that happen within the medical industry and business, and Paul will get into some of these things as we move forward. But to say that it was an intense situation and circumstance the last couple of months would be to putting it mildly. There were so many different things that we had to get in place to make sure that we could solidify what Stony Brook was telling us that they were going to do. Words are words, but we wanted to make sure that we had all of these things written down legally, and also to have Reuven Pasternak and Ken Kachansky, who is the president, sign off on these things, because they're very, very important. Because we did have an attractive offer from North Shore at the same time. So once Southampton made their decision to go with Stony Brook and Peconic Bay made their decision to go with North Shore, it put us in a situation where we had to make a decision. And as I said in the beginning, It was never our intent to merge with anyone. I remember when Columbia Presbyterian was talking to us, and they were trying for us to wind up affiliating or consolidating with Columbia Presbyterian maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And I remember their man coming to us and coming to me and saying to us, "What do you want? What do you want? What can we do for you?" And I remember saying to him, I said, "You can do one thing for us. Leave us alone. We know how to take care of the business of this community. We've been doing it for 100 years, and we know we need a partner." And that was before the Berger Commission, et cetera. The way this business is today with managed care negotiations and contracts and insurance payments, it leaves little room for a small independent hospital for us to be left alone without having a strong tertiary partner. And we made the decision. So far, the response that we have received from the community at large, from the papers, from the residents today, have been 100% favorable. No one has come up to me yet and said, "Geez, why the heck did you do that?" Now, there probably are people who would have preferred North Shore, I don't know. But every person who talked to me was 100% in favor. And I think that you'll all feel very comfortable also after we get done tonight, after Paul and Reuven make their presentations, especially Reuven when he gets into some of the things that we're thinking about doing together. Now, looking at the board, the Keep Healthcare Viable Locally, that was a number one prerequisite for us. Maintain a full-service hospital, absolutely. Stony Brook, we did feel that Stony Brook would be the best stewards of our mission. And then we have our good friend Senator Laval, who was a tremendous advocate for Stony Brook, and he had been an advocate for Stony Brook, ever since I came on the board. And all of our physicians also were 100% behind Stony Brook. But again, as I said this afternoon, a conversation with our doctors was that all of the physicians and the whole world could be 100% in favor of Stony Brook. But unless the board had the proposal in front of it and the ingredients that make up that proposal that would satisfy our board and management that we were going to be going in the right direction and having the support that we needed, we would not have been able to make that decision. I told Reuven 3, 4, 5 months ago that unless we are able to finish this off by June 30th, that we will not go with Stony Brook. We will go with North Shore ELIH. And I really wasn't kidding. Sometimes people think you're trying to negotiate. I wasn't trying to negotiate at all. I never tried to do that. I was just telling him the truth. And our board felt very, very strong that unless we had the right proposal in front of us, that they would not go with Stony Brook. Now, getting back to Ken Laval, he had always been a proponent of Stony Brook. But he was in the same position, as far as I was concerned, as the doctors. He he was 100% for Stony Brook. But it was still up to Stony Brook to come to us and meet the demands and the requests that we had. And fortunately for us, I think, and for the community and for our employees, that came to fruition. And we were able to vote. And that vote, as I said before, was a unanimous decision. There was 21 people on our board. And if I were to tell you the number of meetings this little GO6 group had, and by the way, that group was made up of 6 people, as I said, myself and Paul Connor, Carol Donlan, who's here, Neb Brashish, who was the former chairman of the board. He has 21 years with Eastern Long Island Hospital. And then we had 2 physicians, and that was very, very important. Dr. Lloyd Simon and also Dr. Micah Kaplan, who is retired. Now, the reason for that is because those people are very, very important. Micah Kaplan is very, very important for the community. He understands the pulse of the community. And in order to get both those docs, especially Micah, to be able to realize the benefits of the proposal from Stony Brook, there had to be a very, very good proposal. And one other thing I do want to mention before I forget, then I'll turn it over to Paul, is that all the monies that are collected from outside interest, the auxiliary, the gala, the golf, whatever we do, all these things, which always come to about $1 million a year that we get from outside sources, all of those monies will stay in the hospital. They will not go to Reuben, Pasternak, and Stony Brook because we're going to have a big wall like that. And the money will never be, he'll never see it. It'll all be locked away. We'll have to find out where we hid it, but we'll put it away so that we're going to find a way. So what we did at the July 9th meeting when the board voted unanimously, I disbanded that particular committee with heartfelt gratitude because you would have no idea what we went through. And I formed a new committee. And the new committee now consists of 5 people. Jay Quartararo is the chairman. Another member of our board is sitting back here, David Fujita. He is on that committee. Myself and Paul, as I said. Margaret Flanagan, Jimmy Preston, and Vicki DeFriest. Now, their job now will be, along with us, along with whatever help that they need from the former GO6 group, their job will be to put the definitive agreement in place that we'll be able to sign off on that. And the definitive agreement takes and correlates all of the talk back and forth. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, all of these things that we have. We have all of these things in writing in black and white. Now we have to put them in legal form that we can all understand it. So that's what that committee is going to do. And we hope that that would be able to be accomplished in the next 2 or 3 months. So, as you can see, there was a tremendous amount of work, energy, and effort put into this decision. We did not take it lightly. We understood the inevitability of our circumstance, which was very difficult in the beginning to really realize and appreciate that we had to make a decision. We did, and the board's support and involvement was tremendous. One thing that I did do along the way is I never, ever went to Stony Brook and said, this is what North Shore is offering us, nor did I do it the other way with North Shore and say, this is what Stony Brook is saying. If I just repeat it, I'm sorry, you know what I mean. I wanted to make sure that each one of these proposals was able to stand on its own for the betterment of the hospital and the community. Our foundation will stay in place. Dr. Kaplan, who just happened to walk in the room, is on the foundation. Scott Bennett is the chairman of that. And this is a very, very important fundraising element of the hospital. And the monies collected from outside and from throughout the foundation will all be used, as I said, within the hospital at Mr. Connor's request. And that's the only way that that money ever leaves. So I think I've covered most of it. I think you got a pretty good flavor and a feel for what went into this over these last couple of years, the intensity that was involved, especially the last couple of months. So I think that speaking not only for myself, but for the board, I think that we're all relieved that we've come to the end of the road as far as being able to make this decision. We know we have a tough road to go. We also know that at the end of this, after the definitive agreement is taken care of, then we have to get all the state approvals, and they say that could be 6 months, 9 months. But then there'll be what they call an advisory committee. And I think Reuben talked a little bit about it this afternoon, and I hope he'll go into it again later. And what the charge of that committee will be. And it's not like we say, okay, the deal is done and we're all leaving. We can't do that. We have to make sure that this hospital, your hospital, maintains the same quality standards, all the rest of the standards that you have come to appreciate over all of these years. We have to make sure that that happens. We don't want to go away. We want to make sure everything that Stony Brook has said to us is all going to take place in spades, plus some. So thank you all very much. I'm going to turn it over to Paul. Thank you.
This one, can you hear me? No? Yes? Hold it. Testing? No. Testing better. Okay, good. Okay, good evening. Thank you for spending time with us this evening. I hope there's a couple of messages here I want you to be able to leave with. And from my perspective, before I get into what's going to change and what's not going to change, I just want to say one more thing about the decision-making process with the board. As Tom indicated, if you didn't get the message, it was long and arduous, and our board is very diligent and very caring. One major element that the board really focused on were obviously our employees. Our employees make up our hospital. They are the stuff of healthcare. We wanted to make sure, the board wanted to make sure our employees were intact after this relationship is consummated with Stony Brook. And in fact, they are. That all the employees basically come through the transition whole, benefits, seniority, whatever you may want to put in that bucket, everyone is whole. And arguably, after you hear tonight, we will strengthen the campus and actually increase employment throughout the North Fork in healthcare. So that was the objective. And with Stony Brook, the synergy built together is going to build a stronger, more vibrant health system. And let me begin. And I'm going to talk about, let me have my little pointer here, our short-term strategy. So we were very smart, Reuven. We decided to have a six-week or 8-week planning session. And Stony Brook brought out some consultants to facilitate this planning effort. The planning effort really was specific to what is it that Stony Brook could do to create value, to create a better healthcare system just in the short term. This is short term for residents of the North Fork and Shelter Island. So we took a look with all the wonderful data elements that they could put together and found out that out of the 23,000 individuals who live on these 10 zip codes from Laurel to Orient to the 2 in Shelter Island, that a lot of you folks go to Stony Brook for care. Now, partially, we send you from our ER for trauma and those types of major services that we don't offer here. But part of it, you get referred there through your own primary care doctor or subspecialty doctor for a service that we don't have here. So wouldn't it be good if we thought maybe some of those services could be provided locally? The answer is yes, that is a good idea. And this is where the planning effort with Stony Brook really started. That what services are people accessing from coming out here, going all the way to Stony Brook? Can't we consider a model where those services are more accessible, closer, more locally? Kind of like what we did with spine surgery. That's Dr. Raphael Davis. Dr. Raphael Davis is the chief of neurosurgery for Stony Brook, and he performs complex and simple spine surgeries at our hospital. A walking success story is Mr. Siren, Bob Siren, who says about $25,000 worth of hardware in his spine right now. So don't tell that to your wife. So Dr. Davis basically does these types of surgery here. The patients get a high level of satisfaction. He gets great outcomes. The nurses love it, and the hospital employees love it. And the community loves it, and our medical staff loves it. So it's this triple win that we have, that this is the type of model we want to build and bring these subspecialists closer in so you have greater accessibility. And this is what is happening with hospitals. Hospitals are moving out of their little silo, their little inpatient focus.
We are going and finding new models of reimbursement, what we will be participating in over time, that the incentive will be to keep you out of the hospital, to make you well, not just to bandage you up when you come in here and send you back out, but to not let you in here, to care for you better outside. Those are the incentives that will happen over time. But right now, a start of this is bringing these services local. And we have a planning effort with Stony Brook to do that. Dr. Pasternak is going to give you a little bit more detail on that. But that is the first step, and that's something that we think is consistent with the trend and something that creates value for this community. Primary and urgent care. We have a net deficit over the past 10 or 12 or maybe even longer than that years. We've lost 5 primary care physicians from the North Fork, not even including Shelter Island, because they've lost 2 without replacement. And this is what I'm talking about. So we have arguably, well, it's an argument, it's a statistic, the oldest population per capita in the state. And which part of that segment of that population is growing? It's the oldest part. It's the 80-year-olds actually are growing the fastest. Peconic Landing is the retirement destination. The North Fork is the retirement destination. We have a very significant expansion going on here, $40 million expansion. There's another 100 or more individuals, average age somewhere in the late 70s, early 80s. This population drives healthcare. Medicare recipients use 3 to 5 times the health resources that the general population uses. So we're going to need healthcare out here. But the way we're going to deliver healthcare is going to be different. We are going to improve access to primary care. That's the first step for everything. We're going to increase the number of primary care doctors, and through urgent care, we're going to expand hours of access. So arguably, you don't have to go to the emergency room. Of course, sometimes you must go to the emergency room. But for a lot of the things you go to the ER for, you can go to urgent care. And if you've been to an urgent care center that's properly run, you really like it because it's fast, it's convenient. Usually, it's less expensive on your insurance deductible and stuff like that. So it's a growing trend. There are more and more and more of these types of centers that are opening. And we think one that is created by the relationship of Stony Brook and ELI will be a most excellent urgent care center, coupled with, as I said, increased primary care. 2 things that won't change. So those of you who have been into ELI, you know that we have a high culture of caring. We call this high touch. It is so unusual in hospitals these days. This really distinguishes us from most any other hospitals. And today, these things are measured. Patient satisfaction, patient engagement, patient experience, all these things are measured. Medicare measures this. As a matter of fact, part of our reimbursement is contingent upon meeting the standard of care and getting good patient satisfaction. So now they give you a star rating. So if you get 5 stars, it's the very best. And only one hospital in New York State got 5 stars. It's not us, but we got 4. While there's room for improvement, it's not bad. Only 2 other hospitals on Long Island got them. So we're in a fairly elite group, maybe 15% of the hospitals in the whole state. So you have this high level of caring, this culture of caring, that will not change. That is a reflection of the community, and we will make sure that we foster that culture. The second thing is safety. You've heard about safety in hospitals, and perhaps the most important part of that safety are those types of potential infections that you can get by being in a hospital. Hospital-acquired infections can be deadly, and we report them. They must be reported to a number of agencies, and of course, Medicare. Medicare measures that. They measure essentially what kind and how many of these infections happen. This data is picked up by various hospital report card groups, Health Grades, Leapfrog, and Consumer Reports. Consumer Reports has a new issue out now that basically measures this throughout the United States. You can go in their interactive map if you subscribe to them, or if you go on the internet and pay $6, you can do the same thing. And you point on New York State and you find out which hospitals are rated and what their rating is by hospital-acquired infections. I'm happy to report that Eastern Long Island Hospital is in the top 3 of those hospitals that have the least infections. The top is the Hospital for Special Surgery in Manhattan. Another one is a hospital upstate. So we are not only a caring and high-touch hospital, we are a safe hospital. These things will continue to be a part of who we are. And that, as I said, we can help Stony Brook improve some of those things like that, and we're happy to help them do our part with that. Continued community support. Well, we're going to continue to ask you guys for money. And because we're part of the state system really doesn't mean we're going to get funded by the state. The state doesn't fund, basically funds a very small percentage of Stony Brook for some sort of esoteric and specialty reasons that Dr. Pasternak can explain better than I can. But there's really no funding stream. We're not basically becoming part of Stony Brook as for state funding because it doesn't exist. So we will continue to have to ask you for money through our auxilians, which are going to play an even greater role in our hospital. Of course, they have been the common thread through 110 years for our hospital and play even a greater role. You know, for the things they do, Dream Green and the car raffle and all those wonderful, wonderful things. You know, the auxilians donated almost $400,000 last year. Am I right? Almost $400,000. Can you imagine that? There are more auxilians than hospital employees. That's how important and how engaged they are. They will have actually a more important role going forward. Our foundation, Tom mentioned, our foundation will become independent. The money given to the foundation stays in the foundation, and their charter will remain the same. It's to be used only for the Greenport campus of whatever our name would be, Stony Brook at Eastern Long Island Hospital. So you can rest assured when Dr. Micah Kaplan or Scott Bennett or any of the foundation folks talk to you, and you're so inclined to give, that money stays locally. There's no problem with that. Now, I'm going to say that Tom mentioned the time frame. This is important. This doesn't happen overnight. There is a gauntlet of state approvals we have to go through. But it's worthwhile because when we end up through that gauntlet, we will be part of Stony Brook and a new creation of a new health system in Suffolk County, starting with Southampton, going to Eastern Long Island Hospital, and Stony Brook is talking to other hospitals. There's only 2 more independent hospitals on Long Island. Out of all the 21 hospitals, only 2 are independent now, and that's Mather and Brookhaven. And I know Stony Brook is engaged in their discussions with them. Who knows what will happen with that? But we think a Stony Brook-centric health system with community-based specialty and primary care services driving healthcare local is the best solution for this community. Hand this to Ruben.
Thank you, Paul. So I want to thank you for turning out tonight. I'll be doing some talking, but more important, I'll be doing a lot of listening too, because it's important for me to hear what you're looking for and to hear what you want as well. You forgot the ambulance. We'll catch it next time. Okay. So what is it that we have, and what is it that we envision in terms of this collaboration, and what drives us to want to do this? We have a vision of healthcare which is different than a lot of other places. Many organizations see healthcare as something that drives patients and families into a consolidated hospital, a consolidated facility. Our perspective is we want to see care provided as close to patients' homes as possible. And we think it's better care. We think it's better compassionate care. We think clinically you get better outcomes when you provide care in an environment where family can be there and where you have your physician in your community. So the more of that care that we can provide here, as opposed to your having to travel into Riverhead or into Stony Brook, the better you are and the better the health care that you have. It's also better for us at Stony Brook because as a hospital, we're packed full. So we're not looking for people to send us more patients. We're looking for ways that we can have patients get more of their care closer to home. So that's bringing the services to the patient as well, and it's bringing the services to the patient from 2 perspectives. One is when somebody needs acute care, as I say, if somebody needs an emergency room visit, if somebody needs to be admitted to the hospital, needs to get hospital-based care, We want to have more of those services available here, more of the specialty services available here, more primary care available here as well, and that's part of the structure that we've been talking about in terms of how we work with the local physician community, with the local hospital, preserving the culture of Eastern Long Island Hospital, but doing it in the context of pushing more of the expertise from Stony Brook out to help support. The other part about bringing service to the patient is the idea of bringing service to the patient that will keep you out of the hospital. How do we work to provide a support system of health care that provides and addresses any of your health concerns so that you go to the emergency room less, so that you go to be admitted to the hospital less? This is not something you'd hear hospital CEOs saying 5 or 10 years ago, but a lot of our success is going to be the extent to which we can maintain and sustain good health so that you need those services less, and that will be the measure of our success because there'll be plenty of other work to do. Enhanced relationships with referring physicians. We're very conscious of and want to work with and expand the local physician community. Physicians who don't have relationships with Stony Brook now, who are independent. Some want to stay independent. We will respect that. Others may choose to come into a relationship with Stony Brook. We will welcome them. They'll be treated equally. They will all be welcome. But regardless of what their relationship is, to work with them so that they know they have a partner on who they can rely and somebody to work with in terms of providing best care for their patients as well. Paul had mentioned increased access to subspecialists. So as we have been moving a lot of our services east, we have a number of specialists at Stony Brook who are looking forward to bringing services out. Before we embarked upon the proposal that we brought forward, one of the things that we did was to sit down with department chairs at Stony Brook to say, we want to do this with Eastern Long Island Hospital, but if we're going to do this, you need to be part of this. You need to be part of this plan. Are you going to have physicians and programs that you feel you can bring out there? And the programs that you see here are the ones, not all of them, but some of the ones that they have brought forward in terms of gynecologic, medical, and surgical, ENT, ear, nose, and throat, urology, vascular surgery, general surgery. Our chief of general surgery, Mark Talamini, is good friends with Dr. Cosgrove, the chief of surgery at Eastern Long Island Hospital. Combined programs in terms of pelvic wall reconstruction, pelvic floor reconstructive programs. We also have, as Paul may have mentioned, extensive behavioral health program that is at Eastern Long Island Hospital. There are signature programs that you have here in that and pain management that are really premier programs for the island, that are programs that we want to grow, and I find other programs to grow as well here so that they're unique and something that people would want to come to this area from a long distance away to do. The last item on here, Stony Brook Medicine Graduate Medical Education at Eastern Long Island Hospital. We have 140 medical students in each of our 4 years. Those medical students and nursing students, and on top of that, pharmacy students, are learning what it's like to practice medicine. You don't learn all that by staying at a tertiary care academic center for your entire time. We want them, and they want to get out to see how medicine is practiced in community hospitals, to see the challenges that there are in providing care at community hospitals. By doing that, they get exposed to those hospitals, and they start to see where it could be intriguing to make a career out of that type of medicine as opposed to the academic tertiary center. One isn't better than the other. They're just different, and they attract different types of people. So we think by doing that, we give them a better educational experience. They have the opportunity to see what it's like to come here and practice medicine. For physicians in the community who like to participate in teaching, and a lot of them do, it gives them a chance to have that added element. And a lot of physicians like the chance to teach medical students and residents and kind of feel like they're passing something on. They provide care to their patients, but also pass on knowledge and keep that relationship and feel like they're part of something bigger as well. And that's an increased attraction for them. So I think some of you may not know that the Dean of Nursing at Stony Brook used to work at Eastern Long Island Hospital a while ago. So she was very excited about this, about the opportunity to take nursing students who now are being sent upstate to get some of this experience down the road to get some of that as well. So those are wonderful opportunities that we feel there are to be had in the area. And something else that you don't see in here, and that the group that was here before you spoke about, and that's clinical research as well. We have a group of people here who are very intrigued with what their healthcare is going to be, who want to be part of the cutting edge of healthcare. And when Paul describes us and Tom describes us as an academic institution, it's because the critical elements we have that make us thrive. One is providing outstanding care. And we'll take your advice on how we can make it even better, Paul. We'll make it. The two other points, we talk about discovery, finding out what it is that makes us what we are, why we behave the way we do, why we have the diseases that we have, and what we can do to address that, and innovation. How do you take that knowledge and organize it in a way that improves the health of the community? And this is a wonderful opportunity to do that. This institution, Peconic Landing, is an outstanding place to do that in terms of looking at what are the areas in geriatric medicine. And I'm getting up there with you. The first time Paul walked me around here, he didn't introduce me as the CEO of Stony Brook. He just said, "This is Reuben Pasternak," and half the people assumed I was looking to move in here. So in that day, I actually was tempted. So we think there's a wonderful opportunity to take cutting-edge medicine and move that frontier even further and do it with folks such as yourself. So we see it as an outstanding opportunity to improve care here, to work with the local community, both medical and patients, and to advance the science of being able to provide models of care that extend well beyond the North Fork. So I'll stop there because I know you'll probably have some questions, and I'll be glad to entertain those along with my colleagues. I'll add one other thing. These two gentlemen said some very nice things about me, but I have to let you know they were very tough. They and the board made sure that not only were we going to make a promise that sounded good to the ears, they wanted to know that we could deliver. And when they looked at what we were delivering, they wanted to know, are you going to keep the hospital here and have it thrive, not just get by? Is healthcare going to be better? And do you have a business plan that's really going to make that happen? Can this really be sustained? And when we had that exercise with the consultants going through, yes, this is what we see is happening, this is what we want to have happen, but in the hard reality of the business of medicine, that can be a hard reality, this is doable and we'll get it done. So we welcomed our feet being held to the fire, and the advisory board that they talked about, and this will be my last comment, the advisory board, when you hear that, it's a lot of times you can think, well, meets on a quarter, throw up a PowerPoint, and you're done. The advisory board is going to meet frequently, I think 10 times a year, we were talking about 10 times a year. I'll get to know the restaurants in the area. Already have. But this is 10 members from Eastern Long Island Hospital, 3 members from Stony Brook. We can't make changes to senior management without that advisory board approving. The advisory board will be given all the information, full transparency on quality, on access, on safety, and also on the sustainability of it. Is this being run in a way that this institution is going to be there? So we will be held accountable. And they, acting on behalf of the public, will have the opportunity to share that information to the public to say that they have been, and with us together, stewards of that public trust as well. So we take that very seriously. Questions? Yes, sir.
You obviously bring wonderful things to us that improve our hospital here. I'm wondering, you have a very large, successful hospital of your own. What do you get out of it? I mean, why would you want to expand and pick up small hospitals?
Okay, fair question. So a couple of reasons. One is, in this environment, you have to grow. And we think having a larger platform to be able to sustain the academic mission, to be able to sustain the teaching mission and the research mission is helpful for everybody. Second, it's a challenge for us. We are by nature an organization that's looking for new ways to provide care. We're very committed to the concept of population-based health care, and you don't do that by staying in your siloed tertiary care center. One of the initiatives in which we're engaged, as an example of that, is New York State has an $8.5 billion grant from CMS to reform Medicaid. Now, this is a 5-year grant, so don't think we don't have $8.5 billion coming into Stony Brook. One can dream. But this is a program that's designed by CMS to look at Medicaid care. Now, you're not Medicaid, but it's looking at that structure of care. How do you restructure health care so that the care of the population improves, but the cost of the care decreases? And what we have had to do as the leaders of this initiative for Suffolk County, we're leading it for Suffolk County. Every hospital in Suffolk County is participating. We have over 400 providers who've signed on to be part of this. And we had to pick 8 programs where we demonstrate that not only do we reduce emergency room visits and reduce admissions by a certain amount, but that the health of the population involved has increased, that they're healthier for it. So it's not just cutting costs, it's improving the health. That's our mission. That's what we thrive on. So having you as part of that is good for us. That's the part of the mission that we share in terms of doing this. And we see Eastern Long Island hospitals being the epicenter for that type of activity on the North Fork.
Institution, or is it now becoming integrated with Stony Brook?
So it is going to become integrated with Stony Brook, but it has its separate accounting. So we will know, the community board will know the P&L for Eastern Long Island Hospital. So it doesn't all get thrown into a bucket and then get pulled apart in some different way. We will know the finances in detail of Eastern Long Island Hospital, just as we will for Southampton Hospital, just as we do for Stony Brook. The other reason we have to know that is we have a commitment that margins generated at Eastern Long Island Hospital stay at Eastern Long Island Hospital, just as philanthropy generated at Eastern Long Island Hospital stays here as well. So I know with Tom sitting in the room, that accounting will be kept rigorous.
And if I could just follow up, from a human resource standpoint, I know any time that there is a merger, acquisitions and the like, there's always determinations as to whether or not the staff will keep their existing benefits or they get the benefits of the, say, Stony Brook, if they're better than what Eastern Long Island Hospital had. How will that work?
So the way we've worked it for Eastern Long Island Hospital, as with Southampton, is the employment, the contractual relationship, the union membership, the benefits do not change. So the jobs are all being kept. People stay as members of their current union. The employment relationship stays unchanged. So the day that the license is acquired, it will be seamless for them. They will not see that change. Employees have generally preferred to have that and to keep their relationship rather than switch over. We have made very strong relationships with the unions at Stony Brook and at the institutions with whom we're working to make this as least disruptive or non-disruptive for the staff.
Thank you.
I just want to add to that, if I could. A lot of times you hear that a deal, arrangement has been made, it takes X amount of time to do it, and when it gets done, 3 months, 6 months, all sorts of changes. There's nothing like that that's in the is planned. Nothing at all. There will be a continuation of services. There will be a continuation of employment. There are no changes that our board is aware of as to changes in the types of services we offer. other than embellishment on these services. And the hope is that we will be able to improve and have more employees working for the hospital. I know that a lot of you know what it's like, and you've seen what can happen in mergers and acquisitions. That's not going to happen here. We made it our business to solidify that and assure ourselves that there will be a continuation of the services offered at Eastern Long Island Hospital and the employees. So our hope is that we'll be able to grow the hospital. And Reuven said something very important. He said about margins. We have to perform at the hospital. Management has to perform. Physicians have to perform. If we have a service that we are offering and that service cannot carry itself because of whatever reason, well, we have to see what we can do to prop up that service. If we try everything that we can, and maybe because of the changes in the medical business today, in the industry, those services are no longer needed, well, then we would have to take a hard look as to the continuation of that particular thing. But there's absolutely nothing that's been talked about, planned, or on the horizon for any changes in regard to what you were talking about or what you're concerned about. Okay? Reuven?
Do you think that you made sort of a similar deal with Southampton as with Greenport?
Okay. So the question was, did we make the similar deal with Southampton that we, equal deal? Yes. Okay. Short answer is yes. It's the exact same structure, the same agreement. Because the institutions are different sizes, some of the numbers have changed, but that's a relation to the scale. But don't say that down in Southampton. Yes, ma'am.
How many hospitals have recently merged with Stony Brook?
So,
And
okay.
how many are you in negotiation with?
Wow. Okay. So Southampton was the first. That's why it took so long.
Okay.
The other reason it took so long was the Southampton merger came at the same time as some of you may recall the ELIH and downstate hospital situation. So at the same time that New York State was having to look at hundreds of millions of dollars of loss on one operation in Brooklyn, here we are saying, and oh, by the way, we want to do a merger in Suffolk County. It gave them pause. They're past that. They have very much embraced this. We had our discussions with the SUNY leadership. They, in fact, want to come out here for a visit in the fall. Didn't tell you that one yet. They want to tour the area. They're very supportive of this, so we're moving ahead with that. We do have other discussions going on. I'm really not at liberty to go into those. We also have a number of relationships with other hospitals that aren't merger type of relationships, but where we have joint programmatic development, where it's to our benefit to work with them and they with us. And in those, a lot of the same concepts hold. There's an opportunity for us to help them grow something while we grow something at Stony Brook.
What do I do, George? Just talk into it. Okay, hi.
Hi.
You talk about growing the hospital, but the campus is just so big. What are the plans?
I was talking about growing the hospital from a programmatic standpoint as opposed to facility standpoint. What's happening with hospitals at Stony Brook, here and elsewhere, is less care is being provided in the inpatient area, more is being provided in the ambulatory area on the hospital campuses, but we're talking about growing the scope of the programs that are being offered on the campus. I'm not. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm walking into something, am I? Okay. We are looking at facilities, so thank you for bringing that up. So part of our growth coming, did you set this up? Part of our growth in terms of coming east has been that we are establishing points in between Greenport and Stony Brook where we're placing physicians. Riverhead is one, and then we're looking at the Mattatuck-Cutchogue area as another. So we actually have had our facilities people going out to start to look at properties. We'll be glad to sit down with. Okay. But we've identified potential sites to have where physicians can have clinics, where people in the North Fork can have much closer access to that specialty care. So some may choose to go to Riverhead. That actually will be a site a little bit east of the downtown area. Others may choose to go to an office complex that we would have halfway up the North Fork. And obviously we'll be having people come to Greenport to see people here, and then procedures to be done here and other more advanced work to be done here as well. So that is being done.
Will you be bringing in additional subspecialties, such as orthopedics and geriatrics?
We're definitely going to bring in geriatrics. Orthopedics we will be bringing in. I just couldn't make that commitment in the first few months of what we're doing because we need to get more orthopedic surgeons to be able to bring those out here. But Dr. Hurst, who's the chairman of orthopedic surgery, does want to see that expansion. There is an orthopedic surgeon here in the North Fork with whom we will be having discussions as well.
Okay. And what about a stroke center?
That would definitely be in the mix. We actually were talking at dinner about stroke and actually telemedicine for stroke as well, and having that support for the ED that ties in with some of the stroke folks at Stony Brook too.
With this urgent care, will it be students, and will there be any consistent people that will be managing that?
The urgent care would be consistent people in the urgent care center.
Okay. And will they be open to responding to emails and other methods of contacting physicians?
We'll have to. We haven't gotten that far in the planning yet,
Okay.
but yeah, we will. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you. I've been here for 17 years. I work primarily in a geriatric practice at the present time, and I would like to congratulate you all. I think this is a wonderful relationship. I really look forward to the increased access to the subspecialists. I know how far my patients have to go for care, and when they live in Orient and East Marion, even South Hold, Cutchogue, it's a long way to get up to Stony Brook and farther. So I think this is wonderful, and I look forward to hopefully at some point, maybe joining in the group. So thank you.
Come see me afterwards.
I will. I will. Thank you.
Okay. My wife's a nurse practitioner, so.
I live out here and I live in Massachusetts, and we have the benefit of UMass. So when I heard that you were looking at joining, I got very excited. I brought my mother here. I said, I want to see what it's like, because I know UMass did the same thing in our area in Central Mass, where we're outside of Boston, but we have the medical school there, and they have these smaller, where they've reached out into the community. Having you guys do this is just phenomenal. And we're all together. We went to school together. So I'm back here again, deja vu all over again. And so looking at healthcare, I'm like, I love UMass. I want to, but now I'm out here as well with my mom. And I really am thrilled to see this, because I know the benefit of education. Having the students, the residents, the fellows, it just gives that extension that you want to have. And our area is growing in all different ages.
Yeah. My father's 97 years old, lives in Stockbridge, and I'm hoping that somebody does something in the Great Barrington, Stockbridge area similar to what we're doing.
We have the
here.
Worcester, and so you still have some area.
Yeah.
There.
Okay. Well, I'll be a visitor here. When you see me, please don't hesitate to grab me and ask questions, give comments, and we'll be learning a lot from you to help us provide the service and care that you need. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. Have a good evening.